All right, looks like we are getting started. Just waiting for the chat to connect on my end. There we go. Okay, looks like I'm all set up on my end. Thank you for joining me for Lunar Lunch Break. I'm Evylyn Rose. I am an empowerment guide as well as tarot reader, um, offering spiritual wellness services, mostly local to Newark, Delaware, but also I do also offer things online, especially tons of free resources. So for those who don't know me and don't know, I am super awkward on camera. This I'm getting slightly less awkward about it. Um, if you've ever seen any of my early recorded videos, then you know like me scripted work is terrible. So I do enjoy kind of this live stream idea of just off the top of my head, let's go with it. That said, during these Q&A sessions, I answer questions dealing with tarot, spirituality, esoteric topics, um, various spiritual practices. I do look at things through a Wiccan and witchcraft lens. That's primarily my background, as well as Catholicism, um, with some blends of some folk magic traditions and a little bit of Buddhist practice as well, kind of mixed in for good measure. I come with over 25 years of experience in all of these things. I actually started with tarot, which is why when I started this business last year, I made sure my initial service launches were all about tarot, because that's how I got started, finding and exploring my own spirituality beyond what was just introduced to me through the church. Um, let's see. So during these, the little lunch breaks, these again are short Q&A sessions. Um, I do usually try to have some questions that come to me through email, or through, I have a little suggestion box on Twitch, as well as on social media and just in real life, just conversations with people. As questions come up, I make sure to jot them down, and try to go through them. Um, if at any point in time you have a question and you're in one of these live streams, by all means drop them in the chat. I am happy to go back and forth between the questions that I have received ahead of time as well as the questions that are in the chat. I do give priority to the questions that are in the chat, as they come up. Um, Obviously, I finish answering whatever question I was answering beforehand, but then I will get to those. And I do that mainly so that they don't get missed or forgotten. Any questions that don't get answered in these Q&A sessions get answered during our longer hour-long AMA session on Saturdays. So again, the lunar lunch break is kind of your spiritual uplift for the day. So if you are one of those whose Monday looks different from the norm because this is your day off, this is part of your weekend. Um, I know here in Delaware, many businesses are closed on Mondays, which means that anyone who works for those businesses and owners of those businesses are not working on Mondays. So for you, this is your weekend. And then for those of you who are working or should be working, I keep the Q&A session on Mondays short, quick, 30 minutes, in the early afternoon, about 1 p.m., hitting kind of that lunchtime time frame. That way you have enough time to pop in and enjoy for a little bit of your break. Give you a little dose of magic for your day. Let's go ahead and get into some questions because if you watched my intro video, we know that I can chat and chat and chat. All right, so I did get some of my favorite questions that come up, did thankfully come up in this. So I'm going to start with two of my favorite ones. So the first question up is tarot evil? And the answer to that is no. Like, if think about what evil is. Like, There, a lot of times we think in black and white terms, and we go good and evil, and it's like, I don't know about you, but when I was taught opposites in elementary school, good and bad are the opposites. So evil is like so bad that we have to give it its own category of a word. It's so far from good that it's evil, right? Um, and if you've ever walked through a bookstore, if you've ever walked through stores that have like games and stuff like that, you have walked past tarot decks, and now tell me, did you get slapped in the face with some evil because you walked by some tarot decks? Okay, tarot is literally everywhere. It is not evil. Many people have heard me say this, especially if you've taken my Tarot 101 course that is on demand. I'll make sure there's links in the notes. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can check that out. Um, and it's cardstock. Like, to ask, assuming tarot is evil, like, that's a lot of pressure to put on some cards. Like, it's paper and ink. Like, that's it. It's just cardstock. It's nothing. So to that question, is there evil? No, absolutely not. Do I believe that evil exists in this world? Absolutely, certainly. And they are human. The evil things I have seen and witnessed and historically that have existed, they're humans. It's not coming from cardstock or paper. Okay. All right. And then the next question up that I absolutely love and adore: do tarot cards have personalities or spirits? Um, so I've mentioned this in some places. Some people have heard me talk about this. I am one of those people who personifies everything. So I will talk to my computer mouse like it is a person, it is a thing, right? Like, I personify it. That's what we mean when we say personify. We turn it into a person. Um, it's circuitry. It's electric impulses going through wires and lighting up the little flashy light. Um, it's inanimate object. Is it living? No. But do I still talk to it like it's alive? Yes, I do. Okay. I am one of those. I personify everything. So if you ask me if tarot cards have personalities, I'm going to say, well, yeah, duh, everything does. Um, because that's how I am. And you will find that a lot of tarot readers, when it comes to their cards, a lot of uh, people from religious, spiritual, esoteric practices, this is one of those things that we tend to have in common, more often than not, is that we will personify these tools that we work with. Um, we will personify the objects. We see this sometimes within some of the major religions, that there will be these sacred objects that people will pray to them. People will ask them for guidance. And it's like they're inanimate objects, but that's that personifying. Um, so we can hold both things simultaneously. This is that complexity that comes in when it comes to esoteric practice and deep spiritual and religious practice. Is there is a complexity there. We can simultaneously say this is an inanimate object, it's paper and ink, okay? And it also has personality. We can hold both. It's just the way we work with it. If you've ever seen somebody who's hammering away with a hammer and then they hit their hand or their thumb, do they start cussing out that hammer? Yes, yes, they do. They don't just cuss and swear at the pain. They're cussing and swearing at the hammer. Okay, same thing. So we personify objects, and tarot cards equally get personified. Do they inherently, by their very nature, have personality and spirits? No. Again, they are just cardstock, they are ink, it's images. They are, like, depending on the artist, how they created it, what materials they use to create those cards, those images are then put onto the paper and the cardstock and the ink. Um, I do not see that as being any different than just if I type something up and print it out on paper. It's that same concept. Or another way to look at it is taking a photograph. There are some beliefs that if you have your photograph taken, like it takes a part of your spirit. And now, if you look at it in that sense and that artwork when it's put onto these cards, sure, you could say that. Me personally, I have taken many, many photographs. Today, we take photographs of everything. Um, I get weirded out by some of the things we take pictures of. Um, and but we don't look at those images and think of those images as having their own inherent spirit. Like it's a reflection, like when we look in a mirror, right? So in that case, in that instance, tarot cards do not have personalities or spirits inherently. But again, we tend to personify our tools that we use, whether those are spiritual or religious tools, or even tools like my example of the hammer. Um, okay, so hopefully that covered both of those questions. I love them and I put them together on purpose because there's that similar, it all boils down to tarot cards are cardstock and ink. So they are not evil. They are not inherently filled with some sort of entity or anything of that nature. Um, okay. Again, if you are just joining us, if you have any questions, just pop them up into the chat. I do have some questions that people have sent me ahead of time or that people have asked me and I've jotted down. And I will prioritize any questions that are in the chat. So if you want to type those in, I will get to them as I'm answering questions. We still have roughly about 20 minutes left for this session, so there's still some time to get your questions and curiosities addressed today. All right, let's see. Okay, I like this question. How can I start a simple daily spiritual practice? I touched on this a little bit if you have watched the replay or if you call it the Saturday session. So I tend to say start with the micro practices, inserting things into those moments where you already have a habit established. Um, some people like this. It's kind of like doctors when you start a new medication, and they'll say when you brush your teeth, take it when you brush your teeth because you already have that habit. So if you're going to start a new habit, you put them together. Same thing with spiritual practice. Pick a habit that you already have. If it's getting dressed for work or school in the morning, if it's, pulling down the covers to go to bed at night, pick those moments where you already have a routine and a habit and insert a micro practice. That can be prayer, that can be meditation, it can be chanting, it can be literally anything. It can be lighting candles or incense. Um, if you are like me, like some of the more witchy things, it could be drawing a tarot or oracle card. It could be, um, doing a little bit of spell work and magic. But the idea is no matter what your personal spiritual or religious persuasions are, you want to pair that practice that you would like to begin. um, Start small. It's just like trying to start out a new fitness routine when you've been sitting on the couch every day for like the past 3 years. You want to start small, or else you're going to burn yourself out, and then you don't develop the habit. So you start small and work your way up to develop the habit. Same thing with a spiritual practice. Um, I apologize. That would be my son in the background. He knows better. He is 11. Um, so hopefully he will not do that again. I apologize. Um, okay. So again, how to start a simple daily practice is simply getting those micro habits paired with a habit that you already have established or a routine that you already have established. Um, Okay. And again, by all means, please insert questions into the chat. For the lunar lunch break Q&As, I do tend to go a little quicker, um, doing kind of the shorter version of it. For my Saturday sessions, I tend to have the full hour long, so I go a little deeper. So if I am answering a question, you're like, "Ooh, that didn't really make sense to me," then let me know in the chat. That lets me know to take a little bit more time or slow down. All right. Next question that I have is, do you have to follow a specific pantheon of deities? Okay. So for those of you who are not already within like an established religion, if you're developing your own religious practices, your own spirituality, deities are pretty much gods, right? Um, so there are those higher entities that we think of as like the top of the top, although I would argue that gods have their own gods. Um, it's kind of like bosses in any hierarchy, right? There's always somebody who outranks you. Okay. Um, so with the pantheon of deities, this question is a little tricky. So I always heard when I was first starting out, I was always told like don't mix deities from different pantheons. Um, and then there was always a very simple like pray to the god or work with the goddess. Like you made it very simplistic so that you didn't accidentally offend anybody. Of course, that also required the belief that all gods are one god. Um, and kind of in the same way that all humans are humans, sure. Um, I could go with that. I've definitely over the years developed a different take on that. Um, but at least when first starting out, it's not a bad idea to kind of start there and then develop your own beliefs when it comes to God. Is God omnipotent? Is God, is it pantheistic? Is God everywhere? Right? Um, those are things that you learn as you go along. It's not something you have to have the answer to when you're first starting your spiritual or religious practice. In terms of following that specific pantheon, again, I have always kind of been a little bit of a rebel in this case where, yes, learn about the deities that you're trying to work with. Yes, you want to do your research and your homework. No, don't just start, you know, praying or working with a deity that you know, their name came up in a book and you're like, "Oh, yeah, sure, I'll try them out." I mean, you can, but I wouldn't necessarily advise it. Definitely, especially if you are um, taking the esoteric, occultist, mystic, religious, spiritually devout approach, you want to go in doing this as respectfully as possible. Um, so I don't necessarily recommend that. That said, when it comes to the idea of like don't mix pantheons, I have not found that personally to be true. Um, in some instances, I do believe that that would be relevant, but not necessarily in every case. A lot of spiritual and religious practice is trial and error. It is trying out a little bit of this and a little bit of that and finding what works for you. And sometimes learning the hard way. We used to lovingly call it the spiritual two by fours. Like, quit doing this. Um, life will let you know if the way you're going about things is not the right way to go about things. Um, so for me, I know I tend to do a little mixing of pantheons. Tends to be more northern, like Norse Celtic deities with a little bit of Greek. And for the longest time, I didn't really necessarily understand the Greek, but it's only digging into ancestral research that I started to realize, oh, okay, this was a carryover of some nomadic traditions over the ways. When we really, really dig into the history behind these deities, like going beyond just the textbook, like here's a 101 mythology book. When we really dig in, we discover that some of these deities existed long before these civilizations did. Um, so, some, in this case, so like if we look at, for example, Artemis of Greek mythology, she existed long before the Greeks did. Um, she was not born Greek, if you will. She was adopted into the Greek pantheon of deities. And so this is what I mean when I say like I haven't necessarily found that the mixing of pantheons is that big of a deal because when we think of a pantheon of deities, we are thinking of them in terms of the cultures that and civilizations that we know them from recorded history, but not necessarily their actual origins. Um, so it really it gets really tricky with that. So to the simple answer to this, I'm sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. The simple answer to this is No, you do not have to follow a specific pantheon of deities. That said, as you are approaching deities, working with deities, make sure to do so respectfully. Do your homework, ask people, find people who are already devoutly working with these entities, to find the one that is the approach that is right for you. Okay. Um, Okay, I'm not seeing anything new in the chat. Again, if you have any questions or curiosities, go ahead and pop them in. We're coming up on the last 10 minutes of this Q&A session. So if you do have a question or curiosity, please make sure to drop that in the chat before the session ends so that I can address that. I don't want it to get missed. Okay. All right. Let's see. Ooh, okay. And then the last question that I've got here, and this one, it's a really good question. A little tricky. I don't know that I'm going to cover it completely. I may swing back around and address it again in the Saturday AMA. But I'll try to give the short and sweet for right now. How do I deal with skepticism or judgment from family and friends? Ugh. um, So I have dealt with this issue my entire life. So anyone who's ever talked to me about my family dynamics, um, it's somewhat of a running joke, but also kind of like, in typical Pisces fashion, I'm all heartbroken about it. Um, but so I am a Pisces sun. I'm very stereotypical. Like I have all the feels, and I'm very like Myers Briggs, INFP. Like I'm the hippie frolicking in the wildflowers and happiness and joy. People used to say I was unicorns and rainbows, and I forget all the things the words they used to use, but it was like, no, not entirely that optimistic, but the optimism shows, right? And I do get deeply hurt. Meanwhile, my older brother is a Virgo, very like hardcore militant atheist. And here I am, this very spiritually minded, like emotionally sensitive Pisces. And yeah, so that's like that's what I grew up with, was that level of skepticism and judgment from like my absolute favorite sibling. I mean, to be fair, he was my only sibling for, good several years, the first several years of my life. Um, and anyway, but it wasn't just him. It's everywhere. I can talk with one group of people and they are extremely open-minded even if they don't believe it themselves. And cool, I can just be me. And then there are other people where it's like if they know that I am a tarot reader, they just instant like shut off and they stop hearing every word that I say. Which could be really fun to do purposefully when I'm doing any sort of workshops or lectures dealing with kind of like uh, dealing with challenging our own thoughts and our own bias. So any sort of like anti-bias training, it can be a lot of fun to bring up those things that I know people will be skeptical or judgy about, so that they'll shut their brain will kind of shut off and stop listening to me, and then I call them out on it and they start listening again. So dealing with that skepticism and judgment, so that is one way, is learning how to kind of play with it and laugh about it. Um, and kind of use it to point out to people like, hey, you just told me you were so open-minded, but the second I said this thing, you like instant shut down. Like that's not open-mindedness. That is like the definition of close-mindedness. That's that all or nothing and black and white thinking, that you might hear about like among therapists and things like that. They talk about that a lot. That's what they're talking about, where your brain just shuts down. You stop being curious. You stop asking questions. And that's what skepticism and judgment tends to do. It's like, oh, I've made this decision and that's final. And I'm not going to input anymore, no matter what you say. Like, that's everything is going to be confirmation bias from there. So, learning to deal with it for the most part is learning to just look at your own biases and see where you struggle with being open minded yourself. And when you do that, it starts to help building kind of that empathy and that compassion so that when you are confronted by somebody who is being skeptical of your personal beliefs and practices, when they are being judgy towards you, you you learn to like recognize like, okay, this isn't actually me. It's not me that they're skeptical of. It's not me that they are judging. This is a bias that they have. So there's some piece of data there, if you will, that they have made a decision about and kind of labeled it, organized it in whatever way their brain does. And that is what we're seeing as a skepticism and the judgment. And it's like, it's not the best way to deal with it is just to recognize it's not you. It's not about you personally as a person. It's your ego will tell you it's you. It's not you. Um, I'm not sure how much more I could go into this without us being here for like the next 30 minutes. So, since we only have a few minutes, I'm kind of going to leave it there. So, again, biggest thing is just looking at when you yourself are being skeptical or judgy, and then kind of starting to recognize when other people are doing that. And then realizing it's not about you, deep breaths, and then just let it go. If they're open to talking, cool, have a conversation. If they're not open to talking, just, you gotta let it go in the moment. Okay, maybe you'll get to circle around back to it, especially when it's family and friends. It really sucks to like have to deal with that. But sometimes it's just letting it go. My older brother these days, if I start getting onto a topic, he will interrupt me and he'll just say, "You do remember that I don't believe in any of this, right?" And then that reminder is his way of saying, like, if you really want to have this conversation, I'm going to shoot everything down. Or it's one of those reminders of like, do you really need to talk to me about this? Or is there something else that this is about and you need to get back to the point? Again, that goes back to the ADHD kind of squirrel brain goes off to the sides. Um, Anyway, so boundaries are another aspect to it. But again, I'm going to keep this question on my list because I would like to love to circle back around to this and get a little bit deeper into it during an AMA session. Um, okay. So we're coming up on the end. So I do want to make sure I go over some updates. If you do have a question or curiosity before we close out, again, just pop it into the chat. Um, and that way I can make sure that I capture that question and I can answer it during Saturday's AMA. So for our updates, and again, any links or anything that I mentioned here, I'll make sure are in the show notes so that you have that and you can click any links easily because I know I hate it when people say links and expect me to remember them. So I'll make sure they're hyperlinked so you can actually click them. Okay, so first of all, I definitely welcome you to sign up if you're not already one of my moonbeams, signing up for the Starlight Circle. This is a monthly newsletter. I usually give some exclusive, not found anywhere else information, sharing some little tips and tricks like micro practices that I keep talking about. Um, some insights into things going on in the world today or locally in some instances. I give updates about any appearances where I'm going to be, any big events coming up. I also provide a little snippet of the monthly blog to make sure that if you didn't catch the blog post, that you know what's there and you can decide from the email if it's something that you like really want to dive into. Um, this newsletter is free. I do include, on occasion, subscriber-only specials and things like that. So it's definitely worth signing up for. Starlight Circle gets its name from the star card in tarot. Um, so it's supposed to be that little bit of light, that little bit of hope, that little inspiration to kind of help you through your day and get you through all the things, right? Okay. So again, please do sign up for my email newsletter. I only send it once a month because I can't stand getting emails more than that. So I'm definitely not going to send emails more than that. Okay. Moving on into the live stream. So again, this is the Lunar Lunch Break Q&A, 30 minutes, quick answering of questions, 1 p.m. Eastern Time here in the US. And then I do my Saturday, the clearing conversations. We go a little deeper, a little more focus on trying to handle the misconceptions and things of that nature. So the AMA sessions are 5 p.m. Eastern on Saturdays here in the US. And then if for either of those, if you have any questions that you want to submit ahead of time, you can always email me. Um, on my Twitch channel, I do have a little suggestion box. You can pop a question in there. Um, Also, if you follow me on social, you can always either DM me or pop it into social. There's so many ways to reach out to me. Pretty much anywhere where you find me online, pop a question, send a question my way. I am happy to answer that. And if you're local to the Newark, Delaware area, if you see me, just be like, hey, can you answer this question on an upcoming live stream? I will 100% do that. All right. Websites. Of course, my main website is evylynrose.com. Again, that's going to be put into the show notes. To make sure you click on the correct Evylyn Rose. I spell my name a little differently, Evylyn. Um, there's also what I call the Light Weavers Clearing. This is where my services for on-demand courses, workshops, digital downloads, and things of that nature, where no matter where you are geographically, you have access to. That's at learn.evylynrose.com. Again, the link will be in the show notes. There's also Messages in the Moonlight, or what I affectionately call MIM. And this is a free resource I started way back at the turn of the century. Um, and it is entirely free. Everything there is free. Socials, you can find me mostly on Blue Sky is where I'm most active. Also a little political there, so if you're not big into politics, don't follow me on Blue Sky. But otherwise, it's a quick, easy way to find me is on Blue Sky. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Obviously, they're more professional. Twitch and YouTube channels, by all means. You can reach me through those. You'll see me in a few other places. Next door, Quora. Oh, I'm getting there. Quora. I struggle with that one. And I recently joined Alignable. I'm still learning more about that one. That one's more oriented toward fellow entrepreneurs and business owners. But you can now also find me on there. So anywhere you find me, again, Evylyn Rose, and then it's me. I'm the only Evylyn Rose that spells it the specific way. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and end it there. I will see you next time on Saturday at 5 p.m. for our Clearing Conversation live stream. Thank you so much for watching. For those of you who have to get back to work, sorry, but I hope you have a blessed, wonderful day.